My name is Judy Njino, Executive Director, Global Compact Network Kenya. And we're very pleased to welcome you to our session this evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. And we look forward to an exciting session with key speakers from across the Africa and Asia region, as well as New York. So I welcome you to join, engage with us, and I hope by the end of the session, you'll be able to take something out of this. So to begin with, without wasting too much time, I acknowledge that we've spent a bit of time waiting. So allow me to just start us off by inviting Anna Falth, who is the policy advisor for the Women's Empowerment Principles based in New York, and who's currently working with UN Women to share her perspectives around this topic. Anna, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Judy, and thanks everyone on this in this content studio for sticking around despite the delay. I hope we will have an exciting conversations with our colleagues from Bangladesh and Kenya. And I'd like to thank also the Global Compact for having invited me here, and to the Target Gender Equality team for having this session at the larger event. So I wanted to start with a question. How often do you think about gender equality, equality between women and men, as a solution to your business challenges? How often are you asking yourself that gender equality could be the solution? Women are powerful agents of change, and women's leadership is really a key to achieving the SDGs. When organizations, companies like yours, are diverse and inclusive, they are less risky to investors. They are more attractive to talent, and they're more talent actually staying with the company if they feel that if the company cares about diversity and inclusion and about gender equality and women's empowerment. And organizations that have diversity and do take the gender lens into account better understand the consumers and make less blunders, meet the demands of the consumers, both in terms of products and services. And at the same time, it's very important that we don't consider women as all are equal. Women are very diverse. They live in urban, rural areas. They come in different ages, different races, different backgrounds, different languages. And it's very important that we talk about women's leadership and gender equality, that we don't see just one profile of woman in front of us, but there's so much diversity among women. And despite all this evidence that show that women make great contribution to the workplace, to the economy, and society at large, we have estimates that in the current pace of making progress towards gender equality, it will take us 257 years before we achieve gender equality. 257. How many generations are those? Not very quick in estimating that, but think about 10 generations ahead. And COVID-19 have put us a little bit on the back burner here. That some of the progress that we have made vis-a-vis this 257 years are now risking to take even longer. So it's a very, very important topic that we are speaking about today. And generally, women are vastly underrepresented in decision-making, whether it's politics, business, and in communities. And just to make a comparison in the business community, how we are represented as women in parliament, 24.7%. And I remember when I started the UN many, many years ago, we were at 16%. So it's not moving very quickly, but the parliament is still the best figure we have. The women in parliament, 24.5%, is still the best figure we have globally. There are, of course, countries where they're making headways, and we have Rwanda that is beyond 50%. But if you look across the board, across countries, that's what it is. Then, looking at the women CEOs, we plunge dramatically down. And I just looked at the Fortune 500 companies. The figure is 6% women CEOs. And even in my own country, Sweden, where we say that we have gender equality, we have a feminist foreign policy, we have a feminist government and all that, we still only have 6% women CEOs. So we do have a major problem of women in leadership, that we are highly underrepresented. And I was looking into some data also for Africa. Actually, regionally, Africa is leading with 38% of women in senior management. And I'm sorry to the colleagues from Asia here that you are really on the low with 27%. So there is a range, but there's still a lot to do to achieve gender equality. And what I want to also add to this, that it's very important to have women represented in all these decision-making bodies, but it's also very important to have men involved that take gender-sensitive decisions. So we are not proposing here that women will take over the decision-making, but that we have people in place that are gender-sensitive. So that's very important. And that leads me to talk a little bit for a few minutes about the Women's Empowerment Principles. I'm heading the Secretariat at UN Women, but we work very closely with the Global Compact, both in New York, but across the world through the local chapters. So I'm very excited to hear here from Kenya and Bangladesh today about the chapters that you are leading. And the collaboration with UN Women. For those that are not familiar, the Women's Empowerment Principles constitute 7 principles that cover the workplace, marketplace, and community. And they guide companies to really take action, build their action plans, set their targets, set their goals, but then also how to implement through programs and other initiatives. And we have nearly 4,000 CEOs that have made this commitment. So I invite those that are not signatories to do so. And from our side, from the Secretariat, we provide guidance. We organize knowledge sharing events and learning events. This is one of them, even though we are not the organizer here, but the Global Compact. And what we have learned since we started to track a little bit of the data from the WEP signatories is that 68 of our signatories have more than 1/3 of women in management, and 57 have more than 1/3 of women on boards. And why do we talk about 1/3? In the Beijing conference in 1995, we said that 30% is the critical mass, that once we achieve 1/3 of women in a company or on the board or in management, it will continue to make progress. So 1/3 is a great milestone to put forward in your companies. So I encourage all of you to sign, but we also have very interesting guidance, because a company that has an inclusive culture, an inclusive recruitment system, they also attract more women and more diverse talent into the company. We have on our website, webs.org, we have great stories from companies on how they have implemented equal pay, work-life balance, sexual harassment, and other type of policies that are really helping to drive towards that culture of inclusion, diversity, and where women can prosper, both as employees, as leaders, and as executives. And we have also a collection of great stories of women as business leaders, women entrepreneurs that speak up about what it is that are their struggles. And we really hope that all of these stories together would help everyone understand what matters and how we can put this in place. Because without women in leadership, we will not make the progress that we need to do. So I'm happy to continue this.
Thank you, Anna, for your wonderful speech, and really, I don't know something wrong. Nevertheless, I'm Tahmina. I work for Mutual Trust Bank. It's a financial organization in Bangladesh. Well, if I want to say something about my organization here, we essentially focus We operate in the real economy and essentially focus on financial inclusion through mobile banking services and agent banking, agriculture financing. We promote SMEs, of course, women empowerment. We have a very vast initiative for digital transformation and, of course, sustainable financing to, of course, ensure economic and social resilience. Well, of course, everyone knows that with the unprecedented crisis, the prevailing pandemic, our humanity is facing the greatest existential threat of all generations. Yet, but this is one thing for sure, this has widened inequalities in every shape and form. This has also exacerbated violence against women and children globally, and we are no exception. But today, since we are on a different, talking about a different topic altogether, I won't focus on the negative side of it and rather focus on what women leadership means to us, firstly in our country and, of course, to the Bangladeshi context where I belong to. Well, we are a country of around 160 million people, where around 49% is women. Our government is firmly committed to provide strong support and women empowerment from the very beginning. And well, the participation of women in the Bangladeshi workforce actually got momentum in the last couple of decades and has been in the global news since 1980s with the boom in the garment sector. Like we all know that at the present moment, out of 1.2 million laborers, 85% of them is women, so it's a big number. Bangladesh, for that reason, has actually emerged as a shining global model of women empowerment, as more and more Bangladeshi women are competing to break the glass ceiling and making their marks. Well, of course, I really feel proud to actually share one information with you all, that we are the country in the world where women have had a longer tenure than men as the head of the state over the past 50 years. So this is really something very different, and this is a statistics given out by World Economic Forum in their gender gap report published in 2020, where they have said Bangladesh ranked 50th position out of 153 countries in gender equality. In fact, we're the best performing in South Asia, ahead of Nepal and Sri Lanka, and some 60 places ahead of India. Of course, there are some shortcomings and some areas where we need to focus on, like education attainment, health and survival, economic participation, and opportunities. So these are the areas we need to focus on going forward, and of course, we have plans to do so. So considering the women leadership in business, more and more women are getting involved in entrepreneurship and receiving support from banks like us and even the central bank. Women are entitled to bank credit at concessional rate, and even 15% of the refinancing is reserved to encourage women entrepreneurs. We at the banks, we have SME loans up to $31,000 free of collateral against personal guarantee. And if we consider the default rate, surprisingly, women are doing better. They have lower default rate than men. We also have dedicated women entrepreneurs desk where we provide support, information, and service to women's only. All of these are directly facilitating participation of women in the overall economy and the prosperity as a whole. Moreover, we encourage continuous skill development and awareness programs just to enhance the capacities and boost morale of the women entrepreneurs. When it comes to the financial sector, where I belong, and it has been over 13 years now, everybody knows that the financial sector is a highly regulated sector, which is very structured and closely guided and supervised by regulators. This is the flesh and blood of the economies. So the more vibrant it is, better will run the wheel of economy. At the moment, there are 60 banks and 34 FIs serving our economy. And if you consider the performance, it is satisfactory. Of course, there are some exceptions. And if you consider the participation of women there, the number is quite commendable. Well, here I would like to share a recent study conducted by our central bank, which reveals that the ratio of the female workforce compared to the men in the banking sector is around 19%. And considering the entry level and mid-management, it is around 16%. And at the top, like even Anna said, at the top management level, the number is not as bright. It is around 9%. Of course, banking sector, as I believe, is a good option for women. A lot of women are working in this sector, starting from entry to mid management, and every day the number is increasing. And when it comes to position at the top, of course, the picture is not as bright as it seems. Rather, it is a bit stagnant. If I share some research conducted by McKinsey in 2018 that revealed in North America, women account for over 50% of the entry-level workforce in financial sector, which is quite a promising one, I believe. But it rather, in another study, reveals that less than 20% of the financial sector C-suite position in that region is comprised by women. So the percentage actually got less, it got reduced when it comes to women in the top position. So of course, we must admit that the time and effort required to be put at the strategic level is critical. Here we can say that men can afford to, with all due respect, of course, invest their time 24/7 on the clock, thinking about what to do and what can be done, which is required to go high up in the ladder, whereas women are required to engage in family obligation as well. So investing time and effort is, of course, of essence. So there is room for improvement and specific actions can be taken. But one of the most important aspects is what we need at the moment is inclusive culture and enabling organizational structure that promote and encourage women leadership. Of course, specific action like capacity development programs for women workforce coupled with gender bias-free atmosphere and fair competition is required at organizational level. And reducing discrimination in evaluation and promotion would also increase entry-level women promotion rate and help build senior-level women's perception that their gender was not an impeding element at all for this success. Well, also I think entrusting women with new roles or challenges will help them to learn and flourish in the real world. And organizations should have the tolerance level, to consider this as their future investment. At the same time, introduction of mentorship program to promote women leadership can be another effective approach in promoting women workforce for organizational level. If I speak for myself, I think, of course, there can be different opinion. I think a good start is critical to one's success. Yet, there is no alternative to hard work. Everyone agrees. And if I can share from my experience, I have joined the financial sector as a management trainee in a reputed financial organization. Since the beginning, and still now, the journey has been challenging and rewarding at the same time. Early years of my career, one thing actually never crossed my mind, and that is I'm any different from my male counterparts. And this very mindset and the opportunity, of course, to work for an organization which truly believes in women empowerment helped me to come this far as a professional. Another key contributing factor, I must admit, is, of course, we need family support, which I receive right from my mother, my husband, and even my in-laws. All of these have actually helped me to pursue my profession with full freedom. Another important aspect I think I must agree is, of course, we should have strong academic background. And because, guys, knowledge is power. To me, we should know our stuff properly. And I must also acknowledge the fact that I was privileged to have a very supportive and cooperative supervisor over the years who have helped me to grow. Each one of them groomed me and helped me to be a better person altogether. Specifically, I would like to mention my current line manager, who's the additional managing director and group chief risk officer. He believes in me. He empowers me and he really guides me for improvement, skill development. So these are the all facilitating factors which actually help me to progress. In spite of this support and guidance, there has been challenges on everyday life. Of course, one technique to tackle this is to remain focused and positive. By truly believing in myself and capabilities, I take challenges every day and consider any hindrance as an opportunity for me. But at last, if I was to give an advice to maybe my aspiring female professionals, I would say, never think you are a woman, you are a professional at first. There's no shortcut to success, so hard work needs to be. You should have faith in yourself and be honest and sincere to what you do. Always identify your strength and never look back once you have decided. Make your own niche without actually waiting for people to make way for you. First and foremost, I believe you should be a good person to be at the top and have a continuous appetite to learn new things. As I always say, knowledge is power. So on that very note, I would like to thank everyone to give me this opportunity to share my thoughts. Thank you, and over to you, Shahamin.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry for the glitch in my system. Judy, thank you for taking over. We're very happy now to introduce to you Mr. Martin Ochieng, who is the Group MD of Sasini PLC in Kenya. And Martin actually has a master's from the management, strategic management from Oxford Brookes University in the UK. He has been working in the corporate leadership levels in different sectors, not only in the agricultural sector, but also in the pharmaceutical and other FMCs also. He leads a very well-known, very prestigious brand in the agricultural sector, and Martin is here with us today. Thank you, Martin, to share his perspectives of how women's leadership and women's engagement in the agricultural sector can be of a sustainable nature with looking at gender equality from the perspective of Kenya. Martin, over to you. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Shahamin, for that very glorious introduction. And it's my assumption that everybody can hear me well. And yeah, as Shahamin says, you know, working in the agricultural sector, having spent the early part of my career in different perspectives and different parts of the global economy, does really open my eyes towards things that, you know, are taken for granted elsewhere, but in the agricultural sector here in Kenya, in Africa in general, and I think globally as well, still suffers from, you know, many years and decades of lack of equality and equity for women in the workplace. So when I was thinking about what to reflect on, one of the questions that came to me is, why am I so passionate about empowering women in the workplace? And if you just allow me a couple of seconds to share with you where that passion comes from. So growing up, I had many mothers. So obviously, my real mother, who was the disciplinarian, the teacher, the lover, the anchor of our family, setting up the rules, and us as children following up. But I also had alternate mothers. So the other women in my life, my aunties, my teachers in school who were of the women folk. When I got to the university, a lot of my lecturers were ladies. My work colleagues later on when I started working were ladies. And the reason I say this is early on in my life, I discovered that the advice and the leadership that I was getting from my mother and the women in my life was not different from the advice and actions and relationships that I had with my father and the men in my life. And so it was obvious to me early on when I was still in school that there's really no difference between men and women when it comes to aspects of life. Luckily for me, I took that into my working life. And when I started working, I noticed very early on in the early 90s that when I worked with ladies in a team and when I worked with a predominantly male team, generally I got better results from the female side of things. And that intrigued me a bit. And so that continues to be true today and very consistent in the jobs that I've done, in teams that I've led. And it goes in a long way, coming from a man specifically, to see that there's really no need for us to start treating different sexes at the workplace differently, because the skill set is the same. What I can do, anybody else can do. And so when I joined Sasini last year, one of the things that was important for me was the knowledge that I need to drive this insatiable thirst to address the discrepancies I see in gender inequality, not just in Sasini at the time, but in the agricultural sector at large. Now, that sector is been driven currently by a very strong technologically based global integration. And that means that if we don't deliberately push women issues in front, we will not have equity going forward. So we put it upon ourselves to infuse in our strategic framework the need for us to empower women deliberately. And the key word is deliberate, because it's easy to say, and for a lot of people, they struggle with doing it. And so in Sasini, we have policies and practices that drive women-focused initiatives to help us address that historical inequality. Now, we are not where we should be, and we have a long way to go. In fact, if you ask me personally, I would classify us in that aspect of women empowerment as a beginner, but we have begun. And the important thing is that we have strong leadership to drive that, and we want to succeed in doing that. And I'll just give a few examples as I speak going forward. That are things that are very easy to do, that moves us from the talking to the doing space, that we've started to implement in Sasini. One of those is when we have new opportunities to onboard new employees in senior and middle-level management positions, we are deliberately skewing our interviewing list to about 70% women. So that means that we are giving more chances to women with the same skills as men. And we are very deliberate about doing that so that we can accelerate the infusion into our business of women leaders that we see across the economy. We give preference to women. In my time there, I'm very proud to say that we've had big units of our business now being led by women, and that's because we've advanced the ones that we found there, and we've advanced the ones that we bring in from outside as well to help us lead. Because, like I said before, we have adopted this policy of there's no difference in skill set, and so if the skew is currently favoring men, we need to correct that by skewing the input of new colleagues and talent by favoring the women that get into our business. So what support do we need? What do we need to do to keep succeeding at this? And what would be important for me at Sasini, and I guess similar sized organizations that are global leaders in the agricultural economy, is my notion is that doing this is not hard. It really is not hard. We hear a lot of excuses coming from leaders about, oh, there are not enough women ladies that are qualified for a particular position, or you can't have a lady running a tea factory, for example. You can't have ladies operating harvesting machines in the fields, and it's all excuses. And the best way to address that is to be deliberate at the top. And for me, that deliberate approach has come in us engulfing women empowerment policies, like the few that I've talked about, to help us drive that goal of achieving what we want to achieve, to reduce that imbalance and to give us parity. We need to use our influence to drive our value chain and people involved in our value chain, right from suppliers and farmers and outgrowers to our staff, to our leaders, our board, and even to our markets. If we find clients that are women-owned businesses, we prefer to build those and work with them, and that way we'll all achieve together. We also need to use our influence in the global agribusiness era to convince similar companies like ours to do the same. So if they see us doing this as a global leader in agriculture, they will know it's doable, and in fact, excuses need to be thrown to the side. So in conclusion, just of that short personal story, I'd like to take this chance to encourage those companies whose leadership still doesn't see the need to improve parity in the workplace for gender skills and gender inclusion. There's a lot of work to be done. We need to move from saying things to doing things, and it takes a leader to be deliberate. And if we are all deliberate like that, these goals will be very easy to achieve. I'm very passionate about it, as you can hear from my voice. It's something that I'm very proud to be involved in. It's also very, very encouraging for me to be in an all-female panel like this. And I thank all of you for your contributions. And let's push together and make sure that this happens for us going forward. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you, Martin, and thanks to all the panelists for sharing those very useful insights. As we come to the end of this session, I just want to take this opportunity to thank Anna Falth from UN Women, Tahmina Zaman from Mutual Trust Bank, and to you, Martin Ochieng from Sasini PLC. And I think as we wrap up, just to maybe reflect on a few takeaways from this session. I think what we need going forward is an inclusive culture, and we have to stop the excuses, as you've well said, Martin. We also need men to be involved who are gender sensitive. I think that was very well said from you, Anna. And also from Tahmina, I think you've elaborated quite well that companies can take a number of approaches to ensure that women are included and actively participating as important people in the economic life of our society. We also need ambitious and deliberate action from all business. And as we've rightly noted, that we cannot wait for 257 years to close this gender gap. Now is the time to take action. So let's stop the talk, let's take action. With that, I'd like to thank all the participants who've joined our session this evening. On behalf of Global Compact Network Kenya, Global Compact Network Bangladesh, we look forward to supporting all the companies out there, those that are part of the Global Compact as well as those that are not, and also encourage those of you who've joined in and who are currently not participating in the Global Compact to consider signing up and work with us as we ensure that in the next 10 years that we're able to deliver on the global goals. So with that, I thank you all. Goodbye.
Thank you.